Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
They have a whole thing for that. It's called a Snuggie. Should I get you a Snuggie?
No, I don't want a Snuggie. I just want to wear my sweaters backwards.
Sounds like you want a Snuggie.
No, I don't want a Snuggie. Don't buy me a Snuggie. I mean, you can buy me whatever you want. It's your money.
Yeah, it sounds like don't buy me a Snuggie is code for buy me a
No, that's not how consent works. Do not consent to being given a Snuggie. She's lost. She's trying to find a way back into the argument.
But I want to buy you a Snuggie.
Okay, you can buy me a Snuggie.
We had a Snuggie for a while at my parents' house. I don't remember anyone wearing it, except maybe Becky.
Good for her.
This is the earliest we've recorded an episode in a long time.
Yeah.
Not in terms of well, maybe in terms of daytime too. We don't usually do early
Daytime
afternoon.
recordings, yeah.
But we're recording a full week and one day in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So if any important Wheel of Time news has come out in that time, don't fucking bother me about it. I mean, you can, just don't be expecting it to be in this episode.
Yeah, we have to prepare since I'm going out of town.
Sally's going on the annual family getaway to a lake in Idaho that will remain unannounced in case any of you try to find her. And I'll be here at home
Scenario.
playing on my new Xbox and feeding Sally's mom's dog.
He's a good boy.
He's a very big, good boy. So, happy Monday when you're listening to this. It's Sunday when we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
The world is sunshiny in our small corner of it.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, if not metaphorically. People are still not wearing their masks, and the government is like, fuck you. Though, what has changed? Actually, I'll tell you what has changed. It's that the government visibly is saying fuck you to white people as well as to people of color. Mm-hmm. And now us white people are like, it doesn't feel so great, does it? Sure doesn't.
I'm just so mad.
Yeah, it's hard not to be.
Every policymaker and politician in the state of Utah, I mean in the United States of America, all politicians are shit. I hate when people are like, I love this politician, and is like a fan of them. I'm like, girl.
I've never in my life understood that.
Yeah.
Why you could enjoy, like, Bernie stands.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, Bernie's got great ideas and good policies and everything, but he is inherently a politician.
Yeah.
Which means I would never want to speak to him in person.
Yeah. Like, I do not want anything to do with those people. So, anyway, so it's a loaded statement saying that all the politicians in Utah are shit, because politicians are just like a shit breed of people. Mm-hmm. But some of them at least affect caring about human beings better than the ones in the state of Utah. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. The good news is that we get to meld Birgitte into our central text now as the story goes on. Which is exciting because Birgitte's a great character, but unexciting because she will be inherently chained to Elayne's side for the rest of the series. Yeah. This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I have a headache.
Sally has a headache, and as you're listening to this on the Monday it comes out, the
13th of July?
Yeah, the 13th of July. She is out of town, so any inquiries will be directed to me and I'm not as nice as Sal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, be nice to Emily, not because you should, but because she's meaner than me. Which is fine. Some of you probably deserve that.
I will ignore you fully, unless, you have something valid to say.
Yeah, I will be gone from the 9th to the 16th, so you're in Emily's precious hands.
Good luck. The most dangerous game.
Will you survive EHR
I'll hunt
social
all of
media?
Apparently I saw a trailer while watching Elementary last night for the most dangerous game movie adaptation set in, real time, modern times, with one of the Hemsworths as the guy getting hunted.
Who's hunting him?
Some other white guy.
Okay.
Some old white guy. I don't know. I didn't recognize him.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Of all the texts that need adaptations, that would be at the
very little
bottom of the list.
I mean, yeah, it's just so tonally off.
Yeah.
Because white people are like, imagine what it would be like if other people were out to get you.
And it's like, I don't really have to.
Yeah, you don't. That's privilege, baby.
Yeah, if you have any sort of marginalized identity. Like, I was thinking about this today. I went grocery shopping with my mom for the big vacation that we were on, and within the span of, 5 minutes, I watched someone walk into the store, and, you have to have masks. There's a mask mandate in Utah right now, but people aren't following it because this guy didn't have a mask. The store gave it to him, and he walked in where he wasn't seen by any of the employees and just took it off and, put it in his pocket. I was like, okay, annoying. And then, I turned the corner, and there was some dude in a t-shirt that said, "I am the resistance" on the back, and then "Reelect 45" on the front. And I was like, ew. So anyway, public safety is, such a myth.
Yeah.
The public spaces are only safe for, a fraction of the population.
Exactly.
It's I did not feel safe.
No
some dude
does.
was like, fuck this mask, and some other dude was like, if you are gay, Black, any other race other than white, an immigrant, a woman, a trans person, fuck you. It's okay, what if I just attacked you in the middle of this grocery store?
The most dangerous game.
Gonna hunt you down. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent.
Is that what the Amazon Prime show we've been seeing floated around called Hunters is about? Maybe. The most dangerous game. So, so like I said, Birgitte is now entering the text. Tragically, these 2 chapters are from Elayne's point of view. As we know, nothing is good about Elayne's point of view. But I guess Robert Jordan was like, I don't want to write from Nynaeve's traumatized point of view. That would be too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But we have Elayne waiting up for Nynaeve to get back from Teleron Riyadh. Suddenly she notices Nynaeve is, crying in her sleep and making upsetting noises. So Elaine's kind of debating, do I wake her up? What do I do? When Nynaeve wakes up herself and starts babbling about how she killed her. And Elayne is like, she says something about Mogadeen, and Elaine's like, she's not upset about killing Mogadeen, is she? I know Nynaeve better than that.
Yeah.
She would go all Kill Bill on that hoe. And just then there's a knock on the door of their little wagon. Oh, hi. We were talking, so you decided time to join us.
You want to come sit with me, bud? Come here. Okay. But yeah, Tom and Julian show up, and Birgitte
carrying Birgitte. Of course she's naked, because why would we miss an opportunity to render a woman into nudity?
Yeah.
But they're like, oh my god, she just appeared.
Yeah.
Outside, and then immediately fell unconscious. It's very freaky. And Elaine's like, oh god, fuck, yeah, sit her down, and we'll take care of it. Get out, don't talk to anyone. And Tom and Julian are like, we're not idiots. Who are we gonna talk to?
Yeah.
The acrobats?
Hey, this lady just appeared.
Go to Valan Luca, be like, a woman appeared. And Valan Luca will be like, great.
What can she do?
Is she down to fuck? Is she down to walk a tightrope?
Oh, here he goes.
For the biting.
Trying to get that jugular.
He's going, chomp, chomp, chomp.
Thanks for joining us, Tybalt. That was a fascinating guest spot.
Go somewhere else. He's licking himself. Disgusting. Valan, a woman appeared.
Excellent.
What are her skills? I need more of those because I'm a cult leader.
Yeah, fucking apparently.
Yeah, he's like the big cats. He's like that. What's it called? Tiger King? But that was something we were watching at the beginning of quarantine.
Like the big cats. What's it called?
Tiger King.
Yeah. Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic. That's what his fucking name is.
I can't believe that was so long ago.
Yeah. Forever ago. We've
like a
whole
decade ago that we watched Tiger King. Fuck.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so Nynaeve tries to heal Birgitte.
Does nothing, according to Nynaeve. She's still dying. There's nothing physically wrong with her. She's fine, except she's dying. And Elayne very quickly says, oh, there's something I could do. And Nynaeve's like, well, what? I mean, do it. Or Nynaeve's like, oh, you want a link? And Elaine's like, no, I don't think that would help the situation, having more power. Because Nynaeve, you're a nuclear bomb. There's not really anything I can add. Be adding droplets to the ocean. She's like, no, it's just something I've learned. And she bonds Birgitte as her warder, telling us that she knows how to do this because she snuck into some sort of warder bonding ceremony and watched it, presumably from, like, the air vents. As
like a freak.
And she's like, I was so young and romantic back then. And I'm like, that was like 3 months ago.
Yeah, shut up.
What are you talking about?
And just to backpedal for a second, this chapter, when Nynaeve is still in Teleron Riyadh, Elayne attempts a little bit of healing on her to, like, heal her black eye. And Elayne states, like, Nynaeve would never have consented to this awake. Those are, like, the words that she uses. And so it's like, ew. And then just sort of, like, repeatedly throughout this chapter, then we see Elayne pushing the boundaries of consent, where she'd, like, so we've got that instance, and then when she's bonding Birgitte, she's like, usually you're supposed to have permission, but, like, in the olden days, they did it with the warder's permission as often as they did it without the warder's permission, so it's fine. It's
a statement which will come back to haunt us, of course, when Rand is bonded more explicitly without consent. When Birgitte's asleep and dying, it makes a lot more rational sense to us as readers, even if we know the consent issue is sticky. Yeah. When Rand is awake and protesting, it's a lot more obviously upsetting.
Yeah, and then there's one more thing. Oh, and then Elayne keeps having these dreams about bonding Rand as her warder, and she mentions in her, like, internal monologue about it, she's like, I'm gonna bond Rand as my warder no matter what. Like, I will find a way, even if I have to sneak into his bedroom while he's sleeping.
Oh yeah, that's incredibly creepy.
And it's like, it's just, like, such a loaded chapter in terms of setting up all the issues that are inherent with the warder bond.
Yeah.
And just, like, the power dynamics, and the consent issues that are just, like, fraught throughout Wheel of Time. Like, Aes Sedai are, like, constantly threatening to make him their warder. Gross. Barf, barf. And then eventually, and this is skipping ahead a little bit, but in the next chapter, Birgitte is, like, making a joke. She's like, you'll never boss me around like other people do with their warder. And Elayne is basically like, do not threaten me. I do not respond well to threats. And Birgitte is like,
it was a joke.
It was a joke.
And Elaine's like, well, maybe you could tone down on your sense of humor. And Birgitte's like, okay, I'll change my personality for you. This has already become such a fulfilling relationship.
Yeah. So anyway.
I mean, it's so fascinating, the dichotomy we're being presented with here, where it's obvious that Elayne has this romantic notion of the warder bond and attaches to it great romantic meaning, in that she's really obsessed with doing it to Rand, regardless of whether he wants it to be done to him, and to her it's like the pinnacle of a romantic story, is this sort of bond you get to have with another person. But of course that aspect of it doesn't come up at all when she's assigning it to another woman.
Yeah.
She's always just like, can I do it to another woman? You know, talking about the warder bond in like, scientific analytic terms. Like, can this even be done to another woman? I guess there's technically not any rules against it. It's just societally not done. Which is such an interesting way of stepping around what all of the subtext that we know surrounds the Warder Bond. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it, like, doesn't even flash through Elayne's mind at all that this is, like, has any sort of romantic or sexual connotations. It's just, like, a completely factual.
Yeah, which is just straight up, like, not rational.
Yeah.
If you have someone who either you assign meaning to something or you don't, you know? So it would come up, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, a similar...
I'm sitting here too, like a real world parallel.
Say you're a teen girl who's never been kissed, and you are just fantasizing about kissing this one boy, and for some reason there's you have to kiss a woman. I guess it's like, is it like mouth to mouth resuscitation?
Yeah, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah, it's just like stripping. It's just like such a weird sanitized thing where it's like stripping these two human bodies, in this instance, Elayne and Birgitte's, of, like, any sort of sexuality, where it's, like, sexuality is just part of the human experience. And, like, when you're thinking about bodies, like, they're just, even if they're not, like, you're necessarily like, oh, Elayne's like, oh, Def's want to fuck Birgitte. It's just, like, that is another human's body. And those thoughts, I feel like, reasonably would have at least kind of passed through.
Yeah, you would have been like, oh, is she going to make any assumptions about this?
Yeah.
Is something I would think of. Like,
yeah.
Does
like, what
Birgitte
does this
assign
mean?
the same context to this that I do?
Yeah.
And will she then jump to conclusions? It's just playing dodgeball with queer coding, essentially.
Exactly.
So there's that murky issue of consent, the murky issue of assigning sexuality to the Warder Bonds, and all of that is at play here. What was something else I wanted to talk about? Fuck.
Just another quick bounce back to when Elayne is talking about having the Warder Bond with Rand. She, in this dream that she keeps having, there's a bunch of other women, because she's, like, heard that, you know, she's gonna have to share Rand with 2 other women or whatever. She's like, but if I bond him as a warder, that's something that only I will have with him. And so it's this, like, really weird, it adds, like, yet another level of, like, possession to another human being.
Yeah, it's assigning this sort of exclusivity to your relationship with another person. It's, like, sort of a toxic way of viewing polyamory, I think. I have never been in a polyamorous relationship, and I've not done enough research on them, but the idea of, like, well, we'll have this and the other people will not have this seems like an unhealthy way of handling it. Because sort of that means you're assigning something to your partner, your romantic partner, and saying that they will never feel this way or want something from someone else. Yeah. It's just sort of toxic monogamy at play in a polyamorous dynamic.
Absolutely.
Also obvious in these 2 chapters, or maybe not obvious, but we essentially will have in these 2 chapters and the upcoming chapters in Nynaeve's play in her relationship with Birgitte, we'll have a lot of what is happening between Rand and every woman in the text happening between Nynaeve and Birgitte, between 2 women. And it is codified in the text. It is told to us explicitly what this means to Birgitte when people assign themselves guilt for something that has happened to Birgitte. Birgitte says, you are not taking my actions into account. I could probably pull up.
Yeah, I literally marked it in Taylor's book if you want to... Because I was like, what if all Wheel of Time characters learned this? Because it's like, yeah, such a good way to frame... Boop-a-doo, boop-a-doo, boop-a-doo. It's at the bottom of a page on the left-hand side.
Birgitte says of Nynaeve, she did not drag me into this by my hair. If she claims responsibility for the consequences, then she claims responsibility for my actions. I am a free woman and I made my own choices. She did not decide for me. So, essentially that's how all people feel, not just women, but this is what the maidens are trying to communicate to Rand when he denies them access to battlefields and to their understanding of glory and honor. This is what women like Moiraine are trying to teach Rand about what he can and cannot dictate about other people. And Nynaeve manages to pick this up within a few chapters, she gets over it pretty quickly, how she is feeling toward Birgitte. She stops wanting to do this eternal penance on herself. She is really invested in the idea of, I should be whipped, I should be flagellated. When she's first reacting to this, Tom and Julian comment on it. Like she was going on about being whipped or something. Which is something Rand does internally in his relationships with women, if not always physically, although sometimes it externalizes itself. But, yeah, like I said, Birgitte Nynaeve manages to figure it out and get over it, and Rand doesn't. Which says less to me about the characters themselves and more about Robert Jordan's understanding of how... Like, we're seeing that Robert Jordan clearly understands this. He's put it right in the text. And so the fact that he is denying it in Rand's perspective means that it's a character choice he's making for Rand explicitly. Yeah. And that sort of revokes any excuses he might have as sort of doing it in ignorance. He's just fully aware of what he's doing. Not great.
Yeah, it's just not a great personality trait
to assign to anyone, or to have. If you examine
yourself. Do some self-examination this week.
Look inside your heart.
Do you attempt to take responsibility for other people's actions?
Yeah, and it's, like, natural to feel bad about someone getting injured when they're working closely with you. Yeah. Like, of course you would. It's called survivor's guilt, essentially. But, like... Birgitte said, essentially, you have to get over it in about the span of time that Nynaeve gets over it. Yeah. And that's a normal human thing to do. Which I guess is maybe the attempt to say, well, Rand is not in his right mind, that he's... I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again with no changes in the results, which is essentially what Rand's doing, but then it's like, why pick that to be your expression of insanity? Yeah. He's already got a voice in his head. Come on. Yeah. So Elayne bonds Birgitte. Yippee-ki-yay. And she seems to be doing a little bit better. So Nynaeve's like, Elayne's like, you should go to sleep. Like, we'll just have to watch her until the morning and kind of see what happens. And Nynaeve's like, no, I want to go walking. So she just sort of leaves the wagon and wanders around like a wailing woman. And, she gets back eventually, and then Elayne's like, okay, I'll go for a walk, leaves the wagon, sees Tom and Julian are just waiting up next to the fire, and they have a conversation about how they're like, so what's going on? Tom's like, I don't want to draw conclusions, but I am a professional storyteller. Yeah. And I noticed that woman bears a striking resemblance. Yeah. To a woman I've often spoken about.
Yeah, and he, like, pulls out a silver arrow.
He's like, and this!
And this is just the cherry on top.
Exhibit A.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, I find. And Julian's like, yeah, it's pretty incriminating evidence.
Julian, the judge, obviously.
Julian's like, smoking gun. I see it. And Elayne's like, all right, fine, it's about time you guys got let in on the secret. So she sits down and finally tells them everything. Not everything. She doesn't reveal Birgitte's identity, although I'm sure they're both intelligent enough to extrapolate it. Yeah. But she tells them about Teleron Riyadh, about the fact that they are hunting the Black Aja, which Tom and Julian had apparently not been clued in on. I don't know what they thought they were doing in the last book when Elayne and Nynaeve handed them the descriptions of 13 women or whatever and were like, go find these.
And they were just like, yeah, okay.
And we're just like, oh, sure, yeah. As I know, Elayne and Nynaeve work part-time as sheriffs.
Yeah.
And are
just hunting criminals.
Hunting just down these criminals. No, obviously they're Aes Sedai. Yeah. Obviously they're Black Aja. And then they're like, oh, and Elaine's like, by the way, Moghedien's very much after us. And now has some idea of where we are, so she could be hunting us down. And Tom and Julian are essentially like, okay, well, thanks for the intel, several months too late after the fact that it would have been relevant, but we are now essentially stuck together. Of course, they give quote-unquote honorable reasons. Tom's like, I'm not done teaching you how to do the game of houses. And Elayne's like, thanks, Tom. You're the best.
Gross.
And Julian's like, I'm not gonna leave a woman in distress. And it's like, but Julian, you could leave the plot.
Yeah, you could go away. He's like, Rand would be mad at me if I wasn't around to hand you back to him in one piece. And it's like, ew.
Elayne's like, you could leave. And Julian's like, Rand would murder me. After Tom is like, I'll stay with you, Elayne kisses him on the cheek. And Julian's like, you can kiss me too, but I have to stay also. Dryly, Julian says it.
Sorry, my memes!
The memes!
Not the memes!
They just came out like a rainfall. I've been showered in memes.
They're not.
George just feels like looking a little special today. These are very good memes. There's nothing left but mouth-to-mouth combat.
That's one of my favorites.
That is very good.
Like these two frogs.
Yeah, so Tom and Julian are like, effectively, we're staying, but you have to talk to Nynaeve because she's clearly very upset. And Julian's like, yeah, the last time I saw a woman behaving like this, she literally committed suicide several weeks later because she was so guilt-stricken at some traumatic thing she'd done, like stabbing her husband. When
Yeah, she thought he was an intruder.
A robber.
Stabbed her husband.
Men, announce your presence when you enter a room.
Fuck.
Otherwise we will think.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Sometimes Emily will be coming home and I'll be like, this isn't when I expected Emily. Obviously, this is a murderer coming to kill me. And then the door opens. I'm like, not a murderer, just Emily.
Yeah, you hear enough stories about men breaking in and being like, time to do murder, that you're like, it's coming for me.
This is it. This is my time.
Oh,
I imagine intruders so much. It feels more like a memory.
I imagine home burglary so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me?
Right now, as I'm watching Celeste in the dress.
So Elayne's like, well, thank you, men. You're so nice. Now go to sleep. You do have to still obey us. And they're like, fine, whatever. And Julian's like, flip a coin for first watch. And Tom's like, sure. And Elayne's like, men.
Barf.
Adorable.
Adorable.
Adorable. So foolish. Glad I never was one.
She's so annoying.
I know. So she goes into the wagon, is like, Nynaeve, please go to sleep. Nynaeve's like, I have to stay awake. And Elayne is like, shh, shuts her eyelids. Shh, sweet child, now is time for rest.
Nynaeve just conks out.
Yeah, Nynaeve passes out. And Elaine's like, I too will wait up, but as you mentioned, she has some creepy dreams about other women lining up to bond Rand. And then the next thing she knows, Birgitte is waking her up like, this isn't Teleron Riyadh, is it? Where the fuck am I? Mm-hmm. And Elaine's like, no, this is not Teleron Riyadh. You have been ripped out. Oh, I think before that, Nynaeve had shared her fears.
Mm-hmm. That Birgitte got ripped out. She wasn't, like, turned out of the wheel.
Yeah, so she wasn't born into the wheel, into the cycle as she normally is. She's like, now... is this permanent? Is she going to be able to merge back into the cycle? Mm-hmm. What's the deal?
Yep.
And Elayne, Birgitte pretty much immediately jumps to the same conclusion. She's like, this is bad, because out there somewhere Badal has been born already. He's either a baby or like a young boy. And I'm supposed to be there to help him. And now I have to live with the fact that he perhaps has his life ahead of him without me. Mm-hmm. Which is, of course, very distressing to her because not only is she in love with this man, but this is part of the prescribed pattern that she has grown used to. And now she's fully cognizant of it, even in the waking world, which, of course, is a really interesting form of trauma to put on someone. But she sort of just starts crying on Elayne, which is very sad.
Yeah.
And then she's like, what even happened? And Elaine's like, I bonded you as my warder. And Birgitte's like, ugh.
Ugh, could you just have let me die?
And she's like, ugh. Wasn't there anyone else?
Why didn't Nynaeve do it?
Even Nynaeve. Would have been kind of funny if Nynaeve did it.
Yeah. And then she's like, Lan, this is my warder already. Sorry.
Sorry.
And Lan's like, shit.
Lan's like, oh, dunk. Well.
Nynaeve's like, she's also my wife.
Maybe we should have 2 warders anyway, even though you're not in the Green Asha, because who the fuck cares?
Yeah, what?
Elayne's like, I have to be in the Green Aja now. And it's like, girl, you have fully been pretending to be Aes Sedai for the last 2 books.
Yeah. Well, she's like, because I have to bond Rand. And I'm like, first of all,
You don't.
No, you don't.
Second of all,
do whatever you...
Fuck them. Yeah. You're already fucking
Fuck
them.
the police.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, you haven't been following the rules up to now.
Yeah, this is when Elayne confesses to Birgitte that she's actually just an accepted. And Birgitte's like, I feel like I've heard a story of an accepted who bonded a man ahead of time. And she wasn't stilled or anything, but the Aes Sedai made her pass the bond to someone else, do a whole ton of kitchen work or something, and then assigned her warder to her as some crusty old guy or whatever who bossed her around, which is like, great. I love punishing women with lifelong companions. Yeah. That sounds like a healthy way to handle a situation. But Elayne has this like meta moment where she's like, oh my god, I've heard those names before, and the story that has been passed down to them now, of course, is much more romanticized, in that now the young woman has to do all these tasks to earn the man's love, kind of like Psyche and Cupid in that way. Which is just sort of a throwaway line, but this will come up kind of more and more with Birgitte as Birgitte relates the truth of stories as she remembers them from being there or being nearer to them, and other characters are like, oh, that's not what I've heard.
She's like, are you fucking questioning me?
Yeah, so it's just sort of like an ongoing entry in that long list of Wheel of Time thematic. Well, look, stories change the longer you tell them.
Yep.
Although it does also sort of point toward why Birgitte and Matt bond so quickly, is that Matt, too, has long-lost memories, so they can relate in ways that literally no one else on the planet can. The Forsaken, maybe.
It's just Birgitte, Matt, and Demandre.
Hey, just talking about the good old days. But essentially, that settled. Elayne has more creepy dreams about bonding men, bonding Rand with other women. She says explicitly that she wouldn't mind if it was sharing him with Min or Avienda or Birgitte, she says, or Nynaeve. Like, Birgitte would ever go for Rand's crusty ass.
Birgitte's like, ew.
Yeah, Birgitte's like...
Brigitte is explicitly is like, I don't like tall men.
Yeah, that was the line I was laughing at. It was so funny.
Yeah. She's like, he's too tall.
Because finally Nynaeve wakes up and they all start getting ready to go. Elaine's like, well, we can't have Birgitte walk out naked. So they modify a dress for her. They dye her hair black, like Elaine's. And then they are walking out of the wagon and noticing that everyone else is getting ready to go because today they're crossing the bridge to go to the other side of the river.
Samara, right?
Samara, yes, to perform. And Valan Luca is coming up right then and is like, what the F is going on? I thought you guys were going to sleep till noon. We gotta pick up the pace. Let's get going. And Elaine's like, no! Fuck you! Or Nynaeve says. And he's like talking about the competition, and he says to Birgitte, would you be willing to paint your face in order to be a fool? And Birgitte says, I am not a fool and will not be a fool. I am an archer. He says, an archer? Well, you've got the braid for it, essentially. I'm sure you call yourself Birgitte. What are you, one of those idiots hunting the Horn of Valir? And she says, I am an archer, pretty man. Fetch a bow and I will outshoot you or anyone you name 100 crowns gold to your one. And Luke was like, ugh, I don't want to bet on you. Archery.
Yeah.
Bleh. And Birgitte's like, just do it. And he's like, fine, I'll go get my bow. And Elaine's like, are you sure about this? You're still, like, weak and everything. And Birgitte says, he has nice legs, but I have never liked tall men. Add a pretty face and they are always insufferable.
So good.
Heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Tall, good-looking men, the worst. Says Birgitte.
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree. Right. Tall and good-looking, that's too much confidence to give to a man. Yeah.
Dangerous.
It's going to end up insufferable.
Danger on the track.
So they get a little crowd, and Luca marks a spot on a tree and is like, okay, I'll shoot first. But Birgitte takes the bow out of his hand, walks further to make the distance greater, and inspects the bow and arrows, rejects most of the arrows, and immediately shoots at the tree, nails it twice, and then with the other 2 arrows splits the first 2 arrows. Which I believe I watched on Mythbusters is physically impossible.
It's so sexy, though.
But yes, it's sexy, and of course it's the callback to the Robin Hood myth. And the name that Birgitte gives Luca to call her is Marion, or Marion, just like Maid Marian. So we are immediately connecting her to that myth as well. Archers! So cool. And Valan's like, well, that was fucking awesome.
You do gotta respect the man for that.
Yeah, he's like, well, okay.
Cool. Will you be in my circus?
Cool, have your money. You've earned it. Tom and Julian, by the way, we're gathering bets.
Yeah.
Like Fred and George Weasley at the Quidditch World Cup.
Yeah.
This entire time. And they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, we know that's Purge.
We know who that really is, even though Elayne will not tell us.
Rake in the cash.
Yeah.
And Birgitte, Valan Luca's like, so I gotta get you to join the circus. Instead of throwing knives at Nynaeve, we'll shoot arrows at her. And Birgitte's like, he's like, we can call you Birgitte and paint the bow silver. And Birgitte, accurately knowing that Mogadine is looking for them, is like, no, call me Marion, and this bow is shitty enough without adding paint to it.
Yeah.
She's like, no, but can I have a red dress too?
I love her so much.
She's like, I want to show my tits. As Birgitte says, her life philosophy is if you're on the gallows, toss a coin to the hangman and make the drop with a smile on your lips, or something like that. So she's sort of a refreshing change from most of what we've seen with our main characters, which is when something bad happens to mope about it.
Yeah.
But Birgitte rather healthily gets her cry out and then gets a move on with her life. Not to say you can't mope and wallow, that is all very good and very healthy in some instances, but Birgitte, that's sort of the norm for most of our characters. Birgitte is sort of immediately portrayed as this, even though she seems young, she says she's old enough to be Godal's mother and more, which I assume makes her in her 30s.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, since most of our women are in their 20s.
Yeah.
Or younger.
Barf.
But maybe she's in her 40s. That would be so hot.
Good for her.
I love her. I forgot what I was saying.
It's just that, like, most of our characters do not process their emotions. They just sort of stew in them, which is, like, fine. Sometimes it can take a while to figure out what's going on with you, but, like, Birgitte seems to be very emotionally healthy in that she's very in tune with herself. So she's like, I'm upset. This is what I need to do to release it, and then I will get back to my normal life self.
Yeah, she's emotionally mature, which is something that we don't see with most of our main characters.
Definitely not Nynaeve and Elayne.
Definitely not Nynaeve and Elayne. Definitely not Rand or Perrin. Definitely not Matt, although Matt is also refreshing in that his unhealthy handling of emotions is at least different from everyone else's. He just sort of relentlessly compartmentalizes.
And then goes gambling.
And then goes gambling to, gets in knife fights to release that. God bless him.
I'm worried about.
Yeah. But yeah, sort of, Birgitte's like the breath of fresh air that we need in Nynaeve and Elaine's otherwise extremely stagnant narrative.
Yes.
As much as the circus sort of lightens things up, they are fully capable of being the biggest bummers in the entire series, unless you get someone like Birgitte in there who is lightening things up, saying funny things, provoking both of them, being like, yes, I would love to show off my tits.
Hero.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, great.
Yeah, she's delightful.
Yeah, we'll get into more how she is stuck with Elayne, and that really reduces her optimal chances for growth, but pretty much she's where the narrative needs her to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
As much as we'd like to imagine her hanging out with Matt the entire time, essentially, Matt is good doing his job over with his group of bummers, and Birgitte is over doing her job with her group of bummers.
She's also just so tall and, like, probably so buff to be such a good archer.
Yeah, she's got to have the back of a Greek goddess.
Yeah. Like, I bet she's just, like, so shredded and hot.
Oh, God.
Ugh. And, yeah, she's just... I like to imagine her, like, a foot taller than Nynaeve and Elayne. I know that's probably not true, but...
She wears heeled boots, usually.
Yeah.
Which no one else really does. Wear heeled shoes, so she's just like, yeah, so much taller than everyone.
Platform boots.
Yes. We love her.
Like the Spice Girls.
Birgitte. She'd be a great representation if you got a trans actor to play her.
I was literally just about to say the platform boots made me think of Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet, and just, like, toying with the gender there.
Yeah. I also just think it would be really great to invoke a trans identity into a centuries-long, decades, ages-long heterosexual love story.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Brigitte was just a beautiful trans woman.
Yes, I love that. And just, like, she's so perfectly... She handles... The way she plays with femininity is so much more interesting than the way any of our other characters play with traditional femininity. Brigitte usually wears pants, but she loves wearing skirts just to be, like, fun and sexy.
Yeah.
And to have people look at her. And that's so delightful.
Yeah.
And just, God, I love her. She's so mature. She's such evidence that Robert Jordan is capable of writing mature and interesting women, and just didn't.
He was just like, lols.
No.
You can have one as a treat.
You can have one as a treat. So that's those chapters. Next up, we're still with Nynaeve and Elayne for quite a while.
It never ends.
It never ends. But we will get Uno into the plot next time.
That's right.
Which is delightful.
And Brigitte's like, wow, look at this sweary boy.
I know.
And Nynaeve has to implement Unos. You can only swear.
You can only swear twice in one sentence.
And Uno's like,
Uno's like, all right.
It's extremely hard for me.
It's extremely fucking hard for me.
But also, big mood.
Yeah.
I swear so much.
He's delightful.
He's a good character, too.
And I don't think in the next section, but the one after that, we will get Nynaeve meeting the prophet. Or re-meeting the prophet. I guess she's probably seen Massima in passing.
Uno, it would be fun if Uno was Godal's reincarnation.
Oh man, that would be great.
That would be fun.
Brigitte could be like, oh, he's right there.
Look, that's my boy.
That's my boy.
And he's so grumpy.
He's so grumpy, so sweary. Everything Brigitte loves.
Yeah.
But that will actually not be next week. Next week, we are taking a bye week, since, as we have referenced, Sally is taking a vacation and won't be around to record, which again is also why we're recording this early. Instead, we will be releasing a new project that we've been doing in quarantine called Letters to Hozier. We're going through Hozier's entire discography and writing little letters to him about his songs. It sounds so fucking weird when I say it out loud now.
Yeah, it is weird, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just been a fun writing project that we've also recorded. Yeah. So we'll be releasing, I think, the first 2 episodes of that. They're very short, only between 10 and 15 minutes long. So that does not quite equal an episode of EHR, but that does give you something to listen to, though not Wheel of Time related, if you are really craving some new content this week.
And just, like, need our voices in your ears so bad.
And they'll be in your ears because the sound quality for Letters of Hozier is distinctly better than it is for this podcast. We can do it, folks. We just don't.
Much like Robert Jordan writing female characters, we have the capability.
But we're too lazy to implement it.
Yes, exactly.
So all the details for that will be in our Twitter, Instagram, etc. I will figure out how to... You'll be back by then to publicize
Yes, I will be back to publicize it, so you do not have to worry about that.
I don't know how to do that.
I can take care of that.
Yeah, so that's a thing. But then the week after that, we will be back with your regularly scheduled Wheel of Time content, and future Letters to Hozier will be released on their own schedule.
Yeah, which we are still figuring out. And if I could just make sort of a little addendum on the end of it, because Letters to Hozier is our own writing and therefore our own intellectual labor, it would be really awesome if you listen to it and you like it, if you could find some way to support us monetarily. whether that's on our Patreon or through like a one-time donation on PayPal. It's just
Ko-fi's.
I feel a little more intense about putting my own writing out there instead of our ding-dong comments about Robert Jordan's A Wheel of Time.
Yeah, it's a little more vulnerable and intimate.
Yeah, so if you like it and listen to it and are able to support, that would be awesome. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
Let's see. All of the usual stuff. Again, this week, partly, Sally will be gone, so you'll be hit or miss on social media, whether you get me or her, but do follow us on social media. Feel free to reach out. I know I say I'm mean, but really I'm not.
She's not mean.
That bad.
She's just meaner than me, which isn't actually much of a reach.
There should be a Wind Waker live stream this week. I'm not sure if there was one the last week as you're hearing this, because Sally will be gone and it's a little bit harder for me to manage the chat while playing a video game. But no worries,
What if you just have Devin log in and manage the chat for you from afar? Like, he can't speak in the background, but he can just type to people.
Oh, I wish he could come over and speak in the background.
It would be... Devin is much more charming than me, so...
You guys are equally charming.
No.
He doesn't know everyone in the chat, so it would be mostly deeply confusing for him.
Excellent.
But I might have just played Xbox with Devin instead of doing Wind Waker, which...
That seems fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Whew, so, those announcements out of the way. Thank you to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Do you have a sign-off?
This one is just so funny because I have no idea how I would do this, because they write, I had to explain the term yeet to my mother. My mother is normally on top of slang, but this passed her by. My brother and sister-in-law send random videos and pictures of my niece. Oh, that's so cute. In one particular video, they send a picture of her in the background playing with what looks like rubber ducks. The video starts off with her yelling and throwing these two ducks. I comment that my niece yeeted the ducks and my brother and I lost it. I talked to my mother later that same day and she asked what I meant. I had to explain yeet to my mother and why my brother and I were highly amused. But, like, how did you do it? Like, how would you
like you have to send the video.
Yeah.
The This Bitch Empty Yeet video, which I can't do with my family because they'll be offended by the fact that one of the 4 words in that video is bitch. So yeah, that's valiant. A true hero.
Because it truly, it's just like you can't, like, the word has so much power.
Yeah, I hope yeet has entered your mother's lexicon now.
Yeah, and your mother is just constantly like, yeet.
Yeet. Motherfuckers. Okay, well.
Brave is no bar.
Yeah. Eating this podcast into your feeds?
Into your ear holes.
The word. Goodbye.